Hello, welcome to the Chirp YouTube channel. My name is Christy and I am your friendly online speech language pathologist and specialist in children's communication development, which includes behavior, because behavior is a type of communication. Today, we're going to talk again about neurodiversity and about how we can make our programs more welcoming to people who are neurodivergent. Let us talk for a minute about terminology, because we have two terms, neurodiverse and neurodivergent. Neurodiverse means a group that has a bunch of different types of brains in it. Neurodivergent means people who diverge from the typical path when it comes to their brain functions and their brain development. A group can be neurodiverse. A person is neurodivergent. In order to make our programming, whether it be in a sports team or a classroom or a church, welcoming to more people of different types of brains, we might want to make a few changes here and there. One of those changes we discussed last time in that video right there, which was to use visuals. And of course, I recommended some things, which you can also find in the information box in this video, because those are things I recommend all the time, because using visuals is one of the most important things that we can do when we are working with anybody of any age level who might have some differences in development. Today, I would like to just recommend something short and simple, which is consistency. It is very helpful to children in general, especially to our children with different developmental trajectories, if we are consistent. I am talking about consistent schedules, consistent ways of communicating, and consistent responses to their behaviors. Let's go back to the example that I used last week about you being in, I can't remember where I said, Bulgaria perhaps? Excuse me, I am recovering from a virus, so my voice is still a little strange. Let's assume you're in Bulgaria and you see a picture and you're looking for a toilet, and you see a picture of a toilet and it points that way. And you go that way and there's no toilet. Instead, there's just, I don't know, something else. But sometimes when you go in that direction, there is a toilet. It becomes very frustrating to you and you don't know which signs to trust and which signs not to trust. This is an example of why consistency is very important. Consistency means that our brains, which are always working very hard, can take a little bit of a break. They have an easier time because they know what to expect. They know that when I see that picture of a toilet, there will be a toilet in that direction. So all I have to do is head in that direction. Whereas if the sign doesn't mean that every single time, then you have to think, is this one of those times where I can trust it? Is this one of those times when I cannot? Same with a bus schedule, let me say. If the bus comes every day at 8:03 and you need to catch that bus, you can plan your day around catching that bus. If, however, one day on Monday it comes at 8:03, but on Tuesday it comes at 7:56, it's going to be harder for you to manage that and to catch the bus every day. It's going to be even harder if it is at a completely different time every day of the week. This is kind of the example that I think of when I think of our kids, especially those who don't have typical development. They already are managing a lot. They're managing functioning in a foreign environment because they don't easily communicate in the same language, which is auditory input. It takes them extra work to process that coming in through their ears. Their native language, visuals, is not really spoken by most people. They're not going to look around and see pictures everywhere. So that's not going to help them. Also, many of our kids with different development have needs within themselves, sensory needs or emotional challenges, that mean that they are working very hard to manage themselves and to keep themselves at an equilibrium. If you have ever been super exhausted, working really hard to keep your equilibrium, and then one little thing goes wrong and you snap, that is a good example of how hard our kids are working most of the time to hold themselves under control. It's not very easy when we have all these additional stressors. So if the rest of the environment, at least where we are concerned as the person watching this video, can stay quite consistent. Obviously, we can't keep everything consistent. Obviously, a family cannot make every day exactly the same, nor is that healthy. But we can help the child out by having certain things consistent. We can have meals in a certain way at a certain time. We can have at the same time we go out the door to catch the bus every morning to put the kid in school. We can have Saturdays a certain structure. First, we make pancakes as a family, and then we go for a walk, and then we get to choose and have free time to ourselves. It can really help to have some schedule, even at home. But let's say I am I don't know what your child does, gymnastics coach. Rather than having an open gym where everybody just does their own thing, it would probably be helpful to some of our neurodivergent children if every child spent 10 minutes at a particular place in the gym. So one person is doing the balance beam, one person is doing the uneven bars, one person is working on the mat doing something. And the timer rings every 10 minutes and everybody shifts to the next thing, or every group of children switches to the next thing. And then after half an hour of that, or however long it takes, everyone has gotten through all the different stations, then we have a group stretching program, or we present our best skill and everyone gets a turn. But keeping that schedule consistent from one practice to the next will really help our kids who are craving more structure, because it allows their brains to not work quite so hard. Think of ways that you can include structure. Make a class schedule, as we talked about, a visual class schedule, as we talked about in the video from last week, and use it. Let's go back to the gymnastics example. Let's say we're going to have 4 10-minute stations of maybe some of those different events that I mentioned. I will put a schedule on the wall and I will put station 1, station 2, station 3, station 4, and then after that I will put sharing time or performance time for, let's say, 15 minutes. And then every child gets a chance to show off to the families who come to pick them up their best skill from that event. I'm not a gymnast, so I don't really know. I'm making this up as I go along. So give me some grace and apply this to your own field. As station 1, 10 minutes is finished, I'll say, the timer will ring and I'll say, station 1, finished, move to station 2. And I'll point to station 2 and everyone will switch. Very organized, also very visual. The child who needs more visuals, you can even have visuals of the particular station that she should be at during each of these times. And you can give her a little page that says, station 1 will be uneven bars. Station 2 will be the mat. Station 3 will be the balance beam. And then she can have her own mini schedule that she carries with her so that she knows what to expect. Knowing what to expect has been found to decrease challenging behaviors by 80%. So whatever behaviors you're having, you could have 80% fewer of them if you had a very consistent schedule and if the children understood what it was. Be consistent also in the ways that you communicate. I will do a whole separate video on this, but it's a very good idea, especially with our neurodivergent population, to use less verbal language. Shorter sentences, not so much filler. So instead of saying, "All right, everyone, it's time to move to the next station," you might simply say, "Bing, bing, station 1, finished. Time for station 2. It's also easier in a big group for kids to be able to listen to that amount of language versus if you give a large speech every time we switch. Our kids, once again, pretend you are in Bulgaria. Do you want a short sentence when you don't really understand all that well? Or would you like a long drawn out paragraph where it's going to be hard to pick out the salient details? I think I know the answer because I know what I would choose. I would choose a short sentence, maybe not even a full sentence. But I will do a separate video on that, but it's something to consider. Keep your verbiage consistent as well. Keep your schedule consistent, keep your communicating consistent, and keep your responses consistent. This is very difficult for humans because every day we experience something different. And we are in a different mood, and it's a different phase of the moon, and we are in a different personal spot in our cycle. And we may have had a good morning with smoothness, or we may have had a difficult morning with lots of bumps. So it's very hard for us to remember that our responses matter. The way that we respond to children is important because children, I think, deserve to feel important. They deserve to feel like their experiences matter, and they deserve to feel comfortable when they approach me that I will be reliable to respond in a particular way every time they see me. Now, this is not always possible. Sometimes I am a lot more strict than others just because I've been pushed to my limit. And sometimes I'm a little bit more flexible than I normally would be. But usually I have a routine. I have a particular way of responding. I have a particular idea about what's okay from a child and what's not okay. I'm going to intervene at the same stage every time. So an example here, I talked about this a little bit more in that video about why children hate shoes and socks sometimes. I have one little boy that I'm working with right now. Right now, he's okay because he has some boots that he really loves and they're hard to get on and off, so he leaves them on. But for a while, there were people in my classroom who were upset that I was not forcing this child to wear his shoes. Now, I have appropriately trained them, and now they do not bother him anymore or me. But if one day I am there and no one is bothering him to put his shoes on because I don't think it's important and I know that it distracts him, but the next time he's there, someone is constantly bothering him every 2 minutes and saying, "Put on your shoes, put on your shoes, put on your shoes." That's a very different response. And if both of those responses are coming from me, just on different days or different times of the day, that poor child is going to have no idea what to expect or what is okay. A lot of challenging behavior comes from that, from inconsistent boundaries and from inconsistent responses that adults give to the child's behavior. If he doesn't know, if he comes into my classroom and does not know from day to day what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay, that's a problem, and that is going to lead to challenging behaviors. So be consistent in your schedule. Be consistent in your words, how you communicate, and be consistent in how you respond to children's behavior. There are whole lots of other things that you can think of that you should also be consistent in, but those are the first ones to think about because I think they make the most difference. I would love it if those of you who have experience in this area would leave, or even those of you who don't, but you are thinking about this area and pondering and you have some bright ideas, leave those down in the comments for me to see different areas where you would like to work on your consistency. Maybe this is with children you volunteer with or work with in school, or maybe this is with your own children, because it's very hard to be consistent with our own children too. Thanks for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe so that you are here next time when we will talk about another issue related to welcoming kids who are neurodivergent. See you soon. Bye.